Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's sections. So today our section will be conducted in English. Today we have Dr. Noha Saleeb from Middlesex University as our guest speakers. So before the presentation, we would like to introduce our Vice Chairman, Mr. Guan Ting, to have a presentation about the news of the HKIBIM.
Hello, good evening, all members and non-members. Welcome to HKIBIM CBD events. First of all, I'm Guan Ting, Vice Chair of HKIBIM for the term of 2023 to 2025. Welcome, everyone, to come and attend Dr. Noha Saleeb's presentations. So a quick run-through of HKIBIM. So we have, to date, we have more than 1,300 members, and HKIBIM is established in January 2009. So one of our objectives is to promote and advance the general education's understanding and the interest of BIM, to foster general awareness, to establish and advance BIM standards, and to establish links with tertiary educations, government departments and bureaus, to research on BIM, and then provide guidance to our members. So we have been hosting quite a few CBD events this year in strengthening our webinars. And then we have also established the first BIM zones from the institutes, and we have hosted a BIM automation arena last year. Recent updates, we have come together, the new board, since 2023. We have met up with development bureaus on July 6th to share and exchange ideas on the mandates of BIM users and implementations on all projects, and also to promote BIM market aware resources. We've also discussed open BIM, and also using BIM for statutory submissions, and the types of digital tools, software adopted in the markets. And during last year, the CE policy address consultations, the chairman and the vice chairman has also participated in 2 days of consultations online. For this year, we'll be holding the HKIBIM Award 2023, and then the award dinner will be held on 26th of January 2024, on this coming Friday. So we're expecting to grant these awards on different categories like projects, organizations, and BIMers of the years. There's also one of the big event, BIM technical conferences, which we're expecting to hold this year in May. So it's organized by China Graphic Societies, and also co-organized by HKIBIM, IUA, and also Hong Kong Academia. So we'll be celebrating the 15th anniversary this year. So for the local competitions, we have already announced the winner. For the video competitions, we will be announcing the winner on this Friday on award dinner ceremony. And then we are preparing the 15 years publications, and there's much more. Corporate members, to date on our website, we have 10 corporate members now. So we are encouraging more and more companies to enroll and participate as corporate members to contribute to the BIM industry. HKIBIM app stores, we are still in the process of setting this up. We'll be sharing more during the award dinner. There's other publicity channels which were set up. The latest one is WeChat, which we have set up one. And then you can check out all our social media sites, Facebook, Instagrams. Yeah, and we also have our YouTube channels. So thank you, everyone. I'll hand over back to Kevin.
Thank you very much, Guan. So today we have Dr. Noha Saleeb from Middlesex University as our guest speaker. Dr. Noha is an associate professor in construction and creative technologies and program leader for the MSc Building Information Modeling Management program in the university. Today, she is sharing a topic of utilizing digital twins to achieve sustainable development goals and environmental assessment factors. With the KPIs indicators developed by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is known as UN SGD. So we will see how the KPIs can work with the digital twins. So please join me to giving a warm welcome to Dr. Noha.
Thank you very much, everybody. Very pleased to meet you all. Can you see my screen? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so thank you very much for this introduction. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are based, of course. And as was kindly said, so this is my presentation. I hope you can see my screen. Just can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. So without further ado, just a little bit about myself before I go on to our agenda for today. So I have been very fortunate to be in the construction industry for almost 30 years now, actually. And I have two hats on, one as the academic one at Middlesex University as the Associate Professor in Creative Technologies and Construction, but I also am still a practicing architect and BIM consultant in industry for mega projects in the Middle East and in Europe and in Africa as well. In the university, I am also program leader for our BIM programs. So we have two master's programs and one undergraduate program as well, which I was created. And in addition to that, I have other roles in industry. So I am business lead for the BIMAfrica organization. I am a director of the African BIM report. And I'm also editor-in-chief and part of the steering committee on several professional bodies like the CIOB, the London Digital Twin Centre, and BIM for Heritage and others as well. So with that, the reason why I'm saying all of that is that because all of this has focused my attention and my passion actually in the direction of digital technologies. Of course, it all started with BIM, and then from BIM, the overarching umbrella, we then started adding new technologies to it. And one of those technologies which I'd like to talk about today is the digital twins, but not just that, how it relates to our sustainability agenda, which is a global agenda at the moment. So I'm going to start with that in my presentation today. I'm going to talk about just a recap. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the term, but just a recap from our perspective about digital twins and sustainability goals. And then how do you go about creating a digital twin? And I'm going to show a live project case studies of how we did that. And then in the last part, I'm going to show how we aligned that live project with all of the UN sustainable goals, in fact, not just some of them, and how that relates as well to the environmental impact factors, which I'm going to be talking about. So let's start with a few definitions, if you will allow me first. So I believe that the majority of us, of course, know that a digital twin primarily indicates a synergy between a physical asset and a digital asset. Not only that, but there is not just one way, but two-way passage of information between the two of them. So first of all, once you create the representative models, you then have continuous feedback of information from the physical twin, either via IoT sensor telemetry data or databases that are being updated with constant information from the physical twin and its non-graphical information, or you can also have user input. So you can have the users themselves input into the information in the digital twin. It doesn't stop there. In order for it to be a digital twin, as everybody probably agrees, there has to be a feedback loop. There has to be a loop in order for this to be considered a digital twin. So what do we do in the loop? We analyze the information that we get from the physical asset, and then we diagnose problems, we forecast problems, predict them, and we also visualize results and make decisions. The important thing is to make decisions that would enhance the physical asset and then feed it back into the physical asset, either using automated actuators or manual processes and procedures. Of course, every project is different. So this is probably the most agreed on digital twin usage or definition. Further to that, I am sure that as well, many of you have probably seen this. This is a beautiful classification that I always like to go back to by the IoT Analytics Research Institute. And they have basically defined 250 classifications of digital twin. I'm not sure we can call them classifications, but it's very interesting because it can show you the levels of digital twin that you can aspire to achieve. And it is basically divided up into three lenses, if we might call them that. So one lens or hierarchical level is related to the life cycles. So which life cycles are you going to introduce or use your digital twin in? Usually we use it in the operational and maintenance phases because this is when we actually do have a physical twin and we can then create a digital twin or use a digital twin. However, it is possible to utilize a digital twin for other areas as well, or other parts of the life cycle. So even before you have a fully functional building, during the design and during the building of it, where you are preparing for that fully functional twin. And you can also use it for decommissioning at the end to help you with the sustainable decommissioning. The other layer or other lens is what systems are you going to use it for? Are you just going to use it for non-graphical or 2D information? Are you going to use it for single component identification and management, or products, or even higher on whole processes, systems, multi-systems, HVAC, MEP, and so on? Again, it depends on what you need the digital twin for. You do not need to create a fully composed digital twin if that's not the function of it. And finally, what are you going to use it for? Is it just to have a digital representation or visualization and simulation of actions? Or are you emulating real life processes and trying to optimize them? Are you trying to extract and predict? So again, the different usages vary. And this is where practically, and this I'm hoping that today we can take some practical uses for our own organizations and our own projects. This is where you need to do this gap analysis at the beginning of a project to define which ones of these three layers do you want to achieve, so that you do not provide over scope in the digital twin or under scope. Okay, now, so this is a brief introduction about digital twins. So I'd like to go on to talking about the UN Sustainable Goals or sustainability. And of course, everybody is aware of them. We have 17 UN Sustainable Goals. Usually in our construction industry, people only refer to 6 or 7 of them. I wish we had time to have a discussion with you about which ones do you feel they are and which ones are utilized in your organization. But for sake of time, I'm going to summarize it now. So usually, as you might expect, good health and well-being inside the physical space, clean water and sanitation in the services provided in the assets or infrastructure, affordable and clean energy, of course, that is powering the assets and the infrastructure, industry innovation in terms of the usage of the different technologies in the built environment, sustainable cities and communities, of course, responsible consumption and production in the energy, in the materials, in the usage of the spaces, And finally, the climate change that results from controlling our things like our carbon emissions and greenhouse gases. So as you can see, I only mentioned like 5 or 6 here. And these are the ones that are usually alluded to in most projects that we find nowadays. The real challenge is to endeavor to incorporate all of them if possible. Not only that, but it cannot just be a simple alignment, as in we feel we are aligning with them, but it is very useful as well to use this document here on the site, and I have the link for it if anybody would like to go and see it and use it. Of course. And what it is that it is a document produced by the UN of the actual key performance indicators, KPIs, that countries and in our case organizations can use to measure actual quantitative measures, whether we are achieving or aligning with those Sustainable Development Goals. Now, this document is a beautiful one. I will show you examples of it later when I show you how we used it within our LIFE project. It is a big table. It is simply a huge table where each of these goals is written, and underneath it, what KPIs can you use to measure achieving it. Now, not all of these are useful for construction, but the practical exercise here is to see how we can tweak the ones in this document to suit us. And I'll give you an example later of how that was done. It is divided, just for the sake of interest, it's divided up into Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 KPIs. Tier 1 are the ones that are actually the UN is receiving feedback on from countries. Tier 2 are the ones that they're still not receiving feedback on. And Tier 3 KPIs are those which are not necessarily properly identified yet. So you will see it yourself. Okay, so the last slide, which I want to show you in terms of definitions, is what is called environmental impact factors. And this is one which is usually forgotten by industry, by our construction industry. This has been updated a few times, but usually there are 16 environmental impact factors which people refer to. And these are the ones which you can see here in the top left, related to particulate matter, ozone formation and depletion, radiation, toxicity, global warming, ecotoxicity, acidification, and so on and so forth. And at first sight, you look at these and you say, they're not really relevant to construction. And I can understand how people might see them that way. But I am hoping that with our discussion now, we can see how they are almost all pertinent to construction. There have been several researchers, not necessarily divided them up into categories, as you can see here, related to damage to human health, damage to the ecosystem itself, and damage to resources that are available for us to use on the planet. There is also a further study that has aligned them to these sustainable goals. And I will talk about that in a minute. But before I do, I want to go back to these 16 to give examples of how we in the construction industry are affecting them in that, using our projects. So, funnily enough, the wastes that are produced on construction sites, like burning of materials, the dusty sites or roads, gravel pits, and so on, unfortunately contribute to the first one, to having particulate matter increase in the atmosphere. Of course, carbon emissions and greenhouse gases like CO2, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, sulfur oxides, and so on, unfortunately, as we know, contribute to ozone form, improper, and that is a special type of photochemical ozone formation, which is very bad for human health. So these things contribute to that ozone formation in addition to the ozone depletion. So the problem is not just the depletion of the ozone, but the formation of new harmful ozone. Furthermore, you might be surprised to know that something like smoke detectors actually contribute to if I might just give me a second, it contributes to ionizing radiation in the atmosphere. Something as simple as smoke detectors, which is supposed to be good for our health and safety inside construction projects. Sound pollution is part of human toxicity. Waste toxicity as well in our different services systems, MEP, and so on, contribute to fresh water and terrestrial ecotoxicity. Usage of heavy metal on construction, aluminium and iron and steel and carbon alloys. Who doesn't use composites of these or forms of these in any construction projects? These add to the acidification, to eutrophication, and to transformation, both terrestrial and marine. So as you can see, there is a huge contribution from our industry to these, which are forgotten normally. And then if we go to this one here, we will see that there is a huge contribution to these 16 environmental impact factors to these particular UN goals. And I can show you very simply here how they connect. I'm happy to share this presentation, by the way, for anybody who wants to put this as part of their organizational information and goals and objectives within the projects. With all the definitions. Now let's talk practice. I want to introduce you a project, or actually two projects, which I have been involved in doing, which have used that. So these two projects were part of a collaboration between the UK and Egypt as part of something called institutional funds initiative. And basically, the two projects were called Fresh BIM, Framework for Restoration of Heritage Using Building Information Modeling, and Fresh DT, which is Framework for Restoration of Heritage Using Digital Twins. So as you can see, there were two consecutive projects over the span of 6-7 years, which basically necessitated investigating and developing a BIM and then a digital twin framework for heritage buildings with Egyptian government. So the partners were from the UK, British Council, but from the Egyptian side, there was the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities, the STDF, and there were other industry organizations in both UK and Egypt, as you can see, related to that. And the purpose was basically to enhance heritage and listed buildings, which constitute in Egypt, as you know, almost 70% of the worldwide heritage buildings. And of course, that would be useful in all countries all around the world. So what were the objectives of this project? First of all, to optimize the performance of the buildings in terms of energy efficiency, operations costs, ventilation, moisture, carbon footprint, and so on. To simulate what's going on inside the building, the heritage building, in terms of structural, seismic actions, even usage within the building, manage longevity, life cycle management of the fabric and condition of the building itself, and of course, providing health and safety against fire hazards and so on and so forth, again, for the longevity. These were the main 5 in order to enhance heritage buildings, enhance tourism to those heritage buildings, and hence enhance the country GDP because of tourism. So this is the project, the live project that we were performing we were creating the BIM and digital twin for. It is called a Tucson Palace in Cairo, and it is Baroque Renaissance style. And these are just a few pictures of what the palace looked like when you received it. So as you can see, it was in shambles. So it had been affected by a terrible fire in the early century, and parts of it were completely demolished, as you can see. And not only that, internally, these are examples of the works that are inside it, but a lot of them needed huge renovations. And in addition to that, we had other problems. We had bats and snakes inside the building, deteriorating structures. There was no privacy at all in the building. It was being used by neighboring buildings, and there were huge problems in that one. So we were basically asked to help enhance all of that using BIM and digital twins. So how did we go about creating a digital twin? So I have written here heritage digital twin, but this is actually the process that I would, for example, use to advise people if they want to create a digital twin on any project, whether new build or not. Now, this is a process that we went through, which was pretty cumbersome. So it had stages to it. First of all, how do you go about connecting, defining the IoT sensors that you're going to use inside the physical asset, and how do you connect them in the physical asset? That's a big thing. And then how do you then connect them to a physical, or what is the technology or process used? What software and hardware systems are you going to use? What data are you going to collect? How then do you analyze that data? And how then do you make decisions based on that data and return it back to the physical asset? What skills do you need in the team now and going forward to maintain this system? And I just share with you a tiny little bit about the skills. This is actually the skill sets that we found that we need. We not only require people who are BIM specialists or engineers, but we require software programmer or programmers, asset managers, data analysts, visual analysts, of course, all different types of engineers, renovation analysts, and researchers. And the one that was, of course, very important, my apology, is the sustainability specialist. We found that ahead of all of that, we needed a sustainability specialist. So the components, the architecture, and this might be a little bit technical for those of you who are on the journey to create a digital twin within their projects. This might be of help. So we actually utilized like 10 different sets of 14 different types of IoT sensors. These would be implemented on site in different sized and functional spaces inside the building itself. So as you can see, the sensors were not just for light and heat and air quality and amount of carbon dioxide, but there were others as well, like there were motion sensor for social aspect, humidity, occupancy for the social aspect, sound pollution, smoke, even contact, because contact lets us know about the usage. Of course, there was structural, there was water leakage, water quality, and of course, energy by default would be the first one. So we used these 14 and we utilized them, this set, in different spaces. We then went on to the connectivity. So we used, of course, JSON, it's like IoT gateway devices in order to connect the IoT to our hardware back in the offices. And the storage of the information was done using cloud services using MS Azure. And we used blob storage. Blob storage is used to connect unstructured data on the Microsoft Cloud services so that it could be then analyzed. We also connected current BMS and CAFM systems that the government had in this so that we can create a repository inside those. And we used analytics, like, for example, IBM Watson and Power BI. The last stage was to decide on what visual interfaces we were going to use to help us, to help the teams who are going to manage that building later. And we created those interfaces in tandem with them so that they would be easy to use for them. So this is basically the components architecture that one can go through in order to create the digital twin. But we also made sure that there was a feedback loop. So there had to be a connectivity back into controlling maybe the lights or the HVAC systems that were available inside the palace itself, controlling the shades, for example, on the windows and so on and so forth. These are examples of where we connected the devices inside the building. It was actually a process that we had to go through because we had to decide whether these would be remotely controlled or not, whether they would have the opportunity to be battery charged if the electricity supply, like if the electricity went out for any reason in the building. What Wi-Fi system are we going to use? Is that going to be local, or is that going to be like global bandwidth, for example? So we had to go through all of these decisions. Are they going to be connected to a hub on site, or inside the walls, or outside the walls? Of course, inside the walls is pretty problematic if you're dealing with a heritage building, but it's fine if you put it into consideration during the design phase of a new build. And hence why I was saying that digital twin can start earlier than the operations phase. These are examples of the interfaces that we had and both graphical and non-graphical. Okay, and then I go on to my final part, which I'll probably spend a little bit more time on then how we aligned all of that to the UN SDGs. Please feel free to ask any questions that you would like, either in the chat or verbally at the end. I'm happy to take any questions. All right, so let's go back to the 5 main goals that I mentioned at the beginning: optimization of the asset, simulation of the asset, the social data of the asset, the management, operational of the asset, and health and safety of the asset. Now, these were the proposed aims or outcomes, but what were the outputs, the tangible outputs that we were expected to produce in order for this to happen? So in order for this to happen, we created a new heritage classification system, which is non-existent at the moment. Those of you who, of course, deal with technical issues in graphical models use probably classifications like Uniclass, Omniclass, SFG 20, CAUSE. There are many different ones out there, but none of these are suitable for heritage, as I'm going to show you later. So the first thing that we created was a classification system that is useful for heritage. The second thing that we did was created a framework of how to analyze the structures of these heritage buildings. The third one was an expert system, an automated expert system that can advise on renovation strategies if you input in it data from the digital twin to show the problems that we are facing. The fourth one was simulations. Of course, that was the most fun part. VR, a little bit of AR, and simulations of social behavior in 2D as well that will help us manage the buildings. This is how they actually contribute to the 5 goals or aims. And finally, a visual analytics platform with interfaces for preventative maintenance to basically predict what could happen, failures, needs of maintenance in future, and how that can be implemented. And the whole idea was to implement this digital twin outputs into other buildings in Egypt and hopefully other countries as well. What you see on the side here is what we initially aligned, or what we aligned, the 5 main outputs to the different UN sustainable goals. And you can see that all 17 are represented here. And I'm going to give a bit more detail about how they are. But those 5 outputs were actually not enough for us to be able to align with all 17. So we actually found, and that was by pure, not coincidence, but by pure work, that our workflows during the project helped us achieve the other 5, the remaining 5 that you can see at the bottom. Now, let me give you some examples. I'm not going to go into absolute details. I have published about this, so you can, if you're interested, you can read more about that, but I'll give examples. So let's talk about the first output, which is the heritage system. Currently, the classification system, the heritage classification system. Currently, this is what classification systems have. Like, they have the system, the space, the activity, the entity, the complex identified inside the classification system, like in Uniclass or Omniclass, in the form of tables, like the system table, space table, activity table. However, there is no tables that refer to the architectural style of the building, or the geometric ratio attributes and characteristics, the construction method, because from different architectural style to architectural style across the ages, there is different construction methods which make a difference on how you maintain the asset. You cannot use nuts and bolts if this was only used with male and female traction within the construction components of the building, for example. The cultural value, the condition. If you want to replace one piece, a particular piece in a heritage building, with another, you cannot get another piece which is in a completely different condition from 500 years later, for example. So all of these are examples of things or attributes which do not exist in current classification systems. Hence, we produced a classification system, and what you see here is just a representation of the connection between the different classes of it. And this is sort of like opened up in tabular form. And these are examples of the data properties that we included inside those tables. And we found that this helps us achieve these 3 sustainable goals. So it's definitely an innovation. It is definitely used for infrastructure. And it helps us achieve sustainability, because part of these properties were things related to sustainable aspects, like the carbon footprint of the component, for example, the condition and how that connects to circularity. And also it helped us with partnerships, because we were in close contact with the Ministry of Antiquities and with their archaeology teams in order to help create that and help manage that. Let's go on to the second and third outputs, like a framework for structural analysis that we created, and the simulations, virtual reality, and so on. These are examples of some of the work that we did, the graphical 3D work, the laser scans, the modeling from the scans, the structural analysis that we performed, seismic analysis, ventilation maps, CFD, monitoring the heat map movement of people, the occupancy, fluctuations across the day, across the week, across months, especially tourism months. And it's accompanying space temperature map as well, because all of these will affect the longevity of the components in the rooms, in the spaces, because of humidity, because of touch, because of so many different aspects. And we found that these 2 outputs relate to these 4 sustainable goals. Like, how do we have our building sustainable, maintainable for a longer period of time with less carbon emissions and less energy consumption? How do we maintain the health and safety and well-being of the users inside the space? Are we using the spaces in a gender equal way? Like, for example, are there enough toilet facilities for both genders? Are there enough prayer facilities for both genders if they are using the building? Are we reducing inequalities in terms of the male to female ratio of managing the buildings at the moment and in future? So these were identified as well. Now, the last two are related to the visual analytics platform and the expert system. So as I mentioned earlier, we created a whole series of dashboards and visual analytics, both 3D and 2D, that will help us monitor and hopefully control all of these things. Energy, the air quality pollution, if it goes up a little bit, water quality from the services in the taps and in the even the facilities on the outside, as I will mention later, water leaks, sound pollution, humidity, and all of the rest of it, as you can see here, thermal mass, heat gain inside the building. And we found that this helps us align with these 6. So again, sustainable cities, good health, responsible consumption of things like energy, for example, water, lighting, and so on. This, of course, affects climate change and, of course, affects clean water and whether we are able to use affordable clean energy. And this is where a conversation about something like solar panels came into play, whether we can install them on the premises and how we can utilize them, or whether we can increase natural ventilation by opening and closing of different openings inside the palace instead of using artificial ventilation. And also to prevent molds, to prevent the accumulation of insects and bugs, and hopefully future bats and snakes if we can afford it, which were already in the project. And finally, we found that it also helps us with quality education and decent work and economic growth. Quality education was taken as a case study to teach in the postgraduate programs in different universities in Egypt and of course in UK and in industry as well with our connection in industry. So I have been disseminating how to do this work in different industry organizations, but also the hope is to increase the number of employed people in tourism who are managing this and handling this and hence help with the GDP of the country itself. Lastly, I said, if you remember, there were 5 UN Sustainable Development Goals that we did not align with the 5 outputs or products of the projects. And here they are. This is how we aligned them in the project workflows as we were working. First of all, no poverty and zero hunger. Now, these two are probably some of the 2 most difficult ones to align with construction projects. However, when you give it a little bit of a thought, there are ways. Like, for example, we identified that the impact over 10 years after usage of the system, not just on this project, this digital twin system, but on other projects as well, there are going to be an increase in the number and quantity and diversity of jobs in heritage and tourism, which will reduce unemployment and hence reduce poverty. Up to 3 million jobs were actually identified could be affected by this. Also, it could enhance the tourism revenues and the national GDP, as I mentioned, but also with the zero hunger, there were existing premises or around the palace, which were being used for growing vegetables and fruits and things like that. And we started creating a digital twin for these acres of vegetables and fruits and plants and so on, in the hopes of maybe exporting or using them to give to the general population for food and so on. And this, we felt, contributes to the idea of zero hunger, because one of the things in Egypt is there is a little bit of lack of providing local produce, which needs to be imported from abroad. So this could help with that. Another thing is life below water. How do you align a project inland with life below water? In our case, it was a possibility because the drainage services of the palace are very close to the Nile River, and eventually, because this is very old, they were draining or dumping into parts of the river, and hence by curing the wastewater and drainage and so on site, we were contributing to less pollution to the Nile River, and hence less pollution and effect on the life below water. Regarding life on land, and this is one of my favorites actually, the bats and the snakes, we had one of two options: either to eradicate them, fumigate them, or to find a way to transport them safely to other habitats. And this is what we tried to do on the project, and hence preserving that. Of course, on other projects, this could go on to things like preserving natural agricultural soil and not building buildings on it and so on and so forth, but that just probably only applies to new build. And lastly, of course, strong institutions by our connections with so many different organizations, and like, for example, BIMAfrica, US organizations as well, who started taking this case study and looking into whether they could implement it on a wider scale. So this in short, just checking the time. Good, I think I'm on time. Was how we tried to align the UN Sustainable Goals with all aspects of this project. This was then taken further. So some of these deliverables that we produced on this digital twin project, like, for example, the classification system and a few other things as well, were then taken to be implemented within the renovation practices of other public listed buildings, like, for example, the Westminster Palace in the UK. This was taken as part of the workflow that was to be implemented there. Also, we investigated using artificial intelligence and machine learning in future for automated prediction. That is still under study as well. All right, my last two slides, so as not to bore you, is going back to that document I mentioned at the very beginning about the Sustainable Development Goals indicators. So as you saw from the previous slides, we were trying to align in principle on how we saw we could do the UN SDGs, the all 17. But did we actually have any metrics, any quantitative metrics in order to measure our alignment? This is where this slide and the next one comes in, which are my two final slides. So what you see in front of you is how the table looks, but without the colors, of course. The colors are added by me. Inside that document, the UN SDG Key Performance Indicators document, which was just recently updated in March of last year. And what you see in front of it, inside of it, is you have each goal identified. What are the targets that we for the key performance? Okay, so what is the target? What is the indicator that you use to measure that target? So these are the important ones. These are the KPIs that we are looking for. And then a little bit more detail about who is the custodian agency, partner agency that is that will help with achieving or measuring those indicators, and what classification the UN puts for those indicators. So tier 1, as I mentioned, means that there are countries who are already feeding back metrics on how they are achieving that. Tier 2 is basically that countries are not necessarily giving feedback yet on them. And Tier 3, which is very rare in the document, are those KPIs which are still to be better defined. So I have given examples here of an analytical study that we did for the project to see which of these key performance indicators in the UN document we can try to use to measure our alignment on our project. And I'll give you a few examples here, and you're welcome to read this in more detail later. So for example, for goal 1, which is end poverty, there is, for example, this KPI, which is the proportion of population living in households with access to basic services. So we tweaked that to our purposes because that will affect the design of the renovation of the palace to basically see what increased proportion of users can use our internal spaces within the building. So if we can enhance the usable spaces and the number and functional uses and types of users who are using it as opposed to currently, then that is a metric. Let's go on to another one. Even if this is not necessarily in end poverty, but we can also use that for our digital twin that we created for the acres or the estates around the building. So what is the amount of produce that is being produced now as opposed to previously, and how many kilograms would that constitute, and how many people would that feed, and so on. That's in the end hunger one. In ensuring healthy lives, for example, you can see that I have put here what categories this helps in as well that you can think about. So for healthy lives, the proportion of population with large household expenditures on health as the total household expenditure. So in normal industry projects, like your projects, you can definitely use that straight off the shelf. So you can identify, for example, the expenditures of the users of your buildings and how that relates to previous expenditures in terms of energy consumption, energy bills and gas bills, and so on and so forth. In our particular case here, again, using the innovation that we were going to incorporate, has that produced any reduction in the energy consumption, in the energy bills that are being paid for that particular heritage building? So it is all about finding KPIs and trying to tweak them to your own special purposes. Let me go on to, I'm happy to share this so you can go through all of these one by one. Let's go on to, for example, available and sustainable management of water. So proportion of domestic and industrial wastewater flows safely treated. Again, this was quite easy for us to incorporate about what is the percentage of improvement in the wastewater that we achieved as opposed to what was previously. Gender equality. We calculated how many people would be, for example, given jobs in order to maintain this. And we identified what percentage of males to females it was possible to procure for something like that based on the government statistics on percentage of women to men who apply for similar jobs. What else? Sustainable and modern energy, again, percentage of renewable energy that can be used on the project. This is my second slide about goals 10 to 17. So I'm just trying to nitpick here because I'm not going to go through all of them. Okay, so ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. So material footprint. Per capita, material footprint per GDP. We can definitely take that one and tweak it to our purposes about the percentage of improvement of material footprint, carbon footprint on the project. Okay, This one here, for example, related to land use. So a proportion of land that is degraded over the total land areas, again, related to the digital twin that we created around the project. And so on and so forth. The ones in yellow here are the ones that we identified for all construction projects that you can also utilize on your projects, whether they are new builds or heritage builds or infrastructure. But if you go and take a dig and a deep dive into that document, I am sure that you can also find others which can be useful for you. There are lists and lists of KPIs that are just begging to be used, basically. So with that being said, I believe it's possible. And that is what I'm basically here to say and share, that if you would like to align your construction projects, whatever they are, with all of the UN Sustainable Goals and the environmental impact factors, which I hope are not forgotten, you can. It is possible, and I am happy to discuss with anybody further how maybe we can do that. It's also always a healthy discussion to have. So thank you for that. So I believe that I have a few more minutes to maybe show you something quickly in 10 minutes, and then I'm happy to take any questions and answers regarding this presentation or the next one, which I'm going to show you. Basically, what I wanted to also introduce to you are our master's BIM programs at the university and how they align with what I was just talking about. As I mentioned, I've been extremely fortunate to have both hats on because they feed into each other. Without being active in industry, and as I mentioned, I'm even currently consulting on a 1.5 billion mega project. Without that experience, we cannot feed back into our educational programs which help professionals in the industry. So with that being said, just a tiny bit about the university itself, that it is one of the top 2 in the Young University rankings worldwide, and it's in the top 2% of the world university rankings. And we currently have more than, around 40,000 students worldwide in our branches all around the world. Now, our master's programs lie within one of 5 departments in our Faculty of Science and Technology, which is the Design, Engineering, and Mathematics department. And there are 2 master's programs in BIM specifically, which we have been running. So our focus of both masters, and I'll show you the difference between the both of them, is not just on the usual like technology and people and policy and processes with all of their different indicative topics, which people are familiar with. But we also have 3 specific things which we have recently as well updated on both programs. So first of all, we have a strong focus on how to use current Industry 4.0 technologies in this dialogue of BIM, which we perceive as an overarching umbrella for all construction efficient processes. We also have a very dedicated look and examples on how we would achieve construction innovation. And we look at construction innovation in 4 ways: how to do radical, immediate change, how to integrate change across time, the quality and maturity of that change, and how that can be incremental growth in future. So I just wanted to share with you the focus that we have on both programs, actually. And the third very important thing that is now deeply embedded in the program's development, teaching, assessment, and deliverables of the students are the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as I will show you later. So a quick overview of the first masters, which we have been running for 10 years now, and is one of the world-renowned ones, which we won several awards for, is the Masters in BIM Management and Integrated Digital Delivery. And this one is geared towards professionals in the industry who have at least 3 years of experience and who want to gain these management skills. So we talk about design management, project management, information, construction management, facilities and supply chain management. So it's not just technical side. We look at legal, environmental, cultural, business aspects, ethical aspects, health and safety, and of course, sustainability that embeds all of that. And we look at a local and global view of it as well, related to ISO standards and so on, which are from different countries. It is divided up into 3 main modules: technical BIM management, operational BIM management, and strategic BIM management. It is run completely online, but it is interactive. So we have interactive webinars with our participants who are all professionals in the industry, 2 times a week, interaction between them, discussions, not just webinar delivery or just online materials. The structure I can talk about at a later time, but just giving an overview. In part-time, it is done in 1 year. In full-time, it is done in 2 years. And it contains no exams. It is all pure case studies that you work on. And the aims of the 3 are as follows. So the technical BIM management is not just about designing models. It is how you deal with technical issues related to the project, whether at design stage or construction stage or FM and demolition stages. How you deal with that with your teams, how do you manage your teams, how do you manage the projects, how do you manage the collaboration with external teams and subcontractors in the supply chain. BIM operational management then goes on to the operations side of risk, quality, time management, cost management, legal management, sustainability management of the projects. And the last module is a high level, goes up one step further on how do you implement a BIM strategy or digital strategy within the organization as a whole, not just in a project. So you as a director, how do you overhaul the vision of the company or of the organization to incorporate new digital and integrated digital technologies? I'm happy to share this. So these are indications of what each module contain. Happy to share them with you. I won't go into their specifics right now, but this is a little bit about the other master's program, which is newer than the first one. And this one is called Masters in Building Information Modeling and Construction Technologies specifically. So this is a very hands-on master's. The first one is more of an MBA style, and it is very focused on the management side of BIM and integrated digital delivery. This one is more hands-on for people who want to gain specific technical and operational skill sets in software as well as operations. And it is divided up into 8 modules, and anybody can join this one from fresh graduates onwards. You do not have to have an industry background in it, because we start from scratch in terms of the technical skill sets. And also for people who maybe have experience but want more knowledge on the technical side. So as you can see, we have dedicated software modules like this one, the BIM modeling and integrated collaboration, sustainability module, which deals with sustainability software, construction law and finance deals with cost software, visual programming and data analytics, which deals with programming, scripting, and data analytics software. And the other ones complement with project management software as well. I am particularly proud of this particular module, which talks about technopreneurship which basically teaches our participants how do you create a business yourself. What stages do you go through? A practical example that the students do in order to create and innovate an idea that maybe they can take into the industry. And of course, at the end, there is the research project which encompasses all of them. This is an example in the curriculum development of how we aligned all of the UN Sustainable Goals with every single module of the program. And these are examples of the software that we use in the second program. As you can see, they include a lot of what's being used in industry at the moment, like Autodesk Construction Cloud modules, as well, COBie Plannerly, not just 3D modeling software, but also like Solibri, IES, OneClick, and others as well. And we, of course, provide the licenses for all of that. Just a word about both programs. That, as I mentioned, we do not have exams. Everything is taught interactively, but online. So we have several webinars per week with you where we interact with you, see your work, and especially in the second masters, we showcase the work that you've been doing from week to week online. We in Revit or all of the other things, and then we have interactive work between us. We emulate construction projects. So the projects that we have you work on are real live industry projects, which we ask you to participate in as if you are in a work environment with a team. And there are different critical analysis requirements that are provided by us and industry professionals as well. So everybody who works on this project are people who work in industry, as I will show you later. I've already given an example of the software, but also regarding the accreditation, both programs are near completion in the accreditation process with these organizations. The JBM, if someone doesn't know it, it's the joint board which contains 5 different professional bodies within itself. So by the time our participants graduate and alumni as well, they will have this accreditation in process. The entrance requirements, you can see them on the website. Only the first master's requires at least 3 years of relevant experience, but the second master does not. We also accept people with industry experience if they do not have a professional body membership with, or a degree. So that is also something that we look into. These are examples of people from industry who teach full-time on the project. As you can see on the right here, they are all associate and directors and founders and so on and so forth in industry. And in addition to those, we have guest lecturers, more than 40 of them, which I alternate between every year because of the number of them who give also case studies on the project. On our website, you can find testimonials from more than 25 countries globally of our hundreds of alumni of the projects. On the right here, these are the titles of some of our alumni from the program. This is what they are currently working as. You can check them on their LinkedIn profiles. And these are examples of the kind of work that you would be producing. Like, for example, these are design things that are produced, construction details, sustainability analysis, scripting, and so on that you would, from our students' work as well. And lastly, I would like to talk about scholarships that HKIBIM are providing for the members. It might be better if I hand it over to Kay to talk, but there are scholarships at the moment available. Kay, would you like to talk about them?
Hello, everyone. I'm Kay Yun from Middlesex University Asia Pacific Regional Hub. So I think Noha's the webinar is very exciting. So I guess most of you, if you want to do your master, so Middlesex is on top of the list. And for HKIBIM members, we do provide 2 scholarships, 50% high achievement scholarships. This is a very exciting opportunity because if you are HKIBIM members with very good performance in all aspects, it will be best for you to apply and state it on the email that you are from HKIBIM. Then we will ask HKIBIM to nominate 2 scholarship winners at the end of May. And if you don't if you can't get these 50% high achievement scholarships, we still offer £1,000 scholarship for all HKIBIM members who successfully applied Middlesex and received the offer for our BIMS program. And then, yeah. So we accept direct applications. So it's very important for you to complete the application form and provide the academic transcript and certificates, personal statement, 2 reference letters, and also passport ID or your Hong Kong ID. If you are a graduate from the university in Hong Kong, then there's no need for you to submit any English qualification because your course, your bachelor degree are taught in English already. And finally, if you want more information, especially about the application and the scholarship, how to apply, how to get the nomination, then this is the WhatsApp group that I already created. And I think some of the HKIBIM members are already in this WhatsApp group. So feel free to join us. And we are here to answer all your questions. And this is the end of my few slides. And if you have any questions, you can ask now.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
Just one final word that I'd like to end with is that I am more than happy if you would like to get in touch with me to discuss even general discussions about your projects that you're currently doing in industry. So not just questions about the master's programs, but about managing your own projects. I'm more than happy to take any conversation about that. Going on to the scholarships, which Kay mentioned as well, we also have scholarships at the university. And for those who want to do a PhD as well, we have had quite a few of our MSc alumni from industry who are doing PhDs and have received scholarships as well. So with that being said, I am happy to take any questions, whether related to this presentation or the other one which I presented about the digital twin and Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Noha and Kay. I think it's a very informative presentations. At this moment, I think those guests can use the chat function on the top and the Q&A function to raise any questions, whether about the presentations from Dr. Noha or any question related to the sustainability or something else. I think in kind of sustainability in Hong Kong is quite new, even though for those heritage buildings are quite new for us, especially in Hong Kong, I think. So I think there are one first question from our guest. Actually, this is a question from me as well. So we have been seeing quite a lot of digital twins applications or sustainability application in Hong Kong, but I see most of them, they are scattered in different software by those SME or different parties. So usually those solutions, they consist of a lot of small software or platform, or they join together to become one package. So Dr. Noha, from your experience or your previous project, Is that the case, or you already have one software can do it all?
Very good question. Thank you. If you remember the slide that I showed about the questions we were asking ourselves, what do we need software? What skills do we need? And so on. So one of the most important ones, maybe I'll share the that slide. This one here. We were trying to find software that are compatible together, basically.
Yeah.
And what we found in the end, especially not just compatible together, but compatible with the government systems, because the Ministry of Antiquities have their own systems and their own vendors. And in the end, we decided that any software that we use must be compatible with Microsoft. That was in the end our solution. So we had to use Microsoft Azure, for example. We had to use Microsoft analytical software or things which are compatible with it. Within our internal common data environment, we had to choose one that is compatible with that as well. So is Autodesk Construction Cloud compatible? Or maybe another one would be more compatible. So there is no one solution fits all. You have to see what is available in the stakeholders, what is available in the country, and of course prices, and which ones you can connect together. Even when we chose the sensors, we had to do an extensive research, first of all, to find all 14, because sometimes you would find less than the 14, but if you want to get all 14 and they're not compatible, then what's the use? And whether they are then easy to import to Egypt, and whether they can be maintained when they are imported in Egypt, because we need long-term maintenance. So that was a huge part of our initial discussion. But in answer to your question, we use software that were compatible with Microsoft systems, basically. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, all right, that's good. Thank you for your question. Because in Hong Kong, actually, for the government, we have an open government project. In Hong Kong government, they are trying to open their government data or those logical GIS data to share it with the parties. But I think still we are waiting for a kind of one common data structure or those things that can go through all the different platforms. But still at this moment, I can't see a one silver bullet can do it all. So still we are in the wild west. Everybody do in their way, right?
Absolutely. And as soon as I find one somewhere, I'm be sure to share that one with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Noha Saleeb. Thanks for sharing your example. I like your examples, especially for digital twin that you have implemented in Egypt. It's just a perfect example that Hong Kong Construction Industry Council has also defined heritage information modelings. So this is just a perfect example that you have quoted to all our members in this specific case, how HIM could be applied. And also, I also like you taking the approach, defining the challenges, formulating the KPIs, and for example, like defining challenges like some of the missing attributes and redefining more attributes for middle class. So these are just perfect examples that there's always challenges while we implement BIM, establish all of these digital twins. But just in your perspectives, right? You have been doing academia. You have been doing research and consulting. So what are the key challenges that you have faced in clients coming in to ask for you to help in implementing digital twins? Just share some of the key challenges that you have seen from the markets, whether it's from on a global scale or whether it's from the other part of your world.
Thank you for asking. There are quite a few challenges, of course, as you are aware and everybody is aware, but the ones which I've seen being repeated and unfortunately on mega projects as well is, first of all, BIM not let alone digital twin. BIM is considered as an add-on to the project. So it is considered like as just an exercise, a tick box exercise that people need to do, and they don't need to look at it or analyze it or even bother about it right from the start. And unfortunately, I have seen a few projects where I get asked to get involved after the project would have been won and tendered and actually starting construction. And that is detrimental. If you want to have sustainable goals, forget about sustainable goals. If you want to have even efficient goals on the project, let alone sustainable goals, you cannot start that late. And this is a major, major problem on projects. It's that change management. How do you change the mind of the organization owners and project owners in order to start this process earlier? So in order for digital twins to happen, that needs to be part of that conversation right from the start. If it is, then everything's possible. You can then negotiate with the client, you can negotiate with the supply chain in order even to provide a minimal digital twin that could be used to bring information from the asset and feedback with useful information, even if it's not full information. But from my point of view, this is the major problem. And for our participants today, I know that some of them might be at decision-making level and some of them might not be. Even if you're not at decision-making level, don't get tired of relaying to your managers and higher like management the importance of considering these things on projects. Eventually they will listen to you. That's what I found as well. The junior people in the organization have a huge impact on nagging, if I may say the word.
Yeah, sure. I agree. All opinions counts, and we need everybody's voices together. Okay, thank you. Just one last question from my side. I saw one of the slides in the university deck regarding one modules.
Yeah.
The module mentioned about AI generative tools. Could you shed some light in introducing some of these generative tools that if future HKIBI members will enroll in the programs?
Do you mean this program or the first one, the management one? So this is the
There's
management.
There's a modules. I think there's a modules.
I think it's
So-
the second one.
Right. So
There's a
this
module. Yeah.
one, and this is the construction technologies, BIM and construction technologies.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is the one that you mean, visual programming and data analytics
Two
module?
slides down. Just 2 slides down.
Oh, this one, the software?
Oh yeah.
Ah, okay. All right. So 4313 is basically the technopreneurship module that I was mentioning that I'm so happy with because it's almost non-existent in any other master's program. And what we do in it is that we have a specialist who is teaching that one, who has created his own business, basically his own entrepreneurship business. And he's an engineer, and he also works in another major company. And we are using tools which are not construction related. So how do you create a portfolio for yourself in order to attract funding for your idea? So we use things like the Adobe Suite. We also use AI generative tools like ChatGPT and other AI tools in order to help create the vision in a very appealing way for funders and for people to use the idea and to sell the idea, basically. One of the very important things in this module is how do you sell your idea? You might have a fantastic idea for a business, but you're not able to bring it out into the masses. So that's why I wrote the AI generative tools. We're not going to ask people to write coding here, but we are going to show them different existing AI tools, or basically machine learning tools. I should have written machine learning here, that do different functionalities for you. This is different from this module, which is about how do you incorporate Dynamo and Power BI scripting, teaching you how to write scripting inside your project processes and workflows. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely answered my question. I think thanks for shedding light into this. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe let me just
What
raise.
we do.
Oh, sorry. Dr. Noha, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say what we do in the other program is teach you how to manage the usage of these techniques. So you're not actually going to write scripting yourself. But for example, in the technical BIM management, how do you manage the team who is responsible for producing that? How do you direct them on what to do? How do you review them? So as you can see, they are two complementary programs, but one is from a management perspective and the other one is from the technical skill sets and operational skill sets. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No problem. Thank you very much, Dr. Noha. So maybe let me just raise the last question. Could you, Dr. Noha, could you share those two example projects? Are they facing the client? Are they government or private sectors?
The two Fresh BIM and Fresh DT, these ones?
No, those projects, those private projects, though in Egypt, are they facing the client there from government?
The client is government, yes. So let me just enlarge this. I'm assuming you mean the two projects that I showed you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, these. So the main client was the Ministry of Antiquities, the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities, and which were represented by the STDF, which is a Science, Technology and Innovation Funding Authority in Egypt. And from the British side, the government was represented by the British Council, which were funding the project. And it was through a scheme called the Newton Musharrafa Fund, Institutional Links. And these were the organizations, public organizations and private organizations, which were involved, like Historic England, BIM for Heritage, of course, Middlesex University and Cairo University, which you can see here, which were the main principal investigators, and Karnak, which is a private institution as well. So it was a mix between government, private, and higher education institutions.
I see. That's great. So are they, do they have any BIM specification for kind of the Egypt BIM specification, or they follow the well-established UK standard?
They are using the international standards. There is I won't say it's a mandate for usage of BIM, but an advocation for using of BIM that was issued by the government, but it's not mandatory at the moment. Of course, you need to mandate things in order for them to be used widely, like what we had here in the UK. But yeah, I mean, it's all in the works. And the same thing in the whole of the continent, Africa. I mean, within my work in BIMAfrica organization, it is this, there are countries which have adopted BIM more than others, but they're all on the right track, which is good to see. But the majority are using the ISO standards. They are using also our PAS standards that we created in the UK before as well, even though they're redacted, but they still have very useful processes.
Yep. Thank you very much, Dr. Noha.
I think we're doing good on time.
So I think we are going to the end of these sharing sessions. So for guests, if you still have any questions, you can just send it to us right after the sharing session. We can direct those questions to Dr. Noha and her teams as well. So I think we are closing this sharing session tonight. Thank you again, Dr. Noha and Kay from the Middlesex University London. And thank you very much for those guests. Have a good evening. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.